Yes. Hello everyone and welcome to another Q&A Corner interactive industry interviews presented by High-Tech U, an initiative of the University of Victoria's Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. Now, I am so excited to be here tonight for another interview. It's been a couple weeks since we've had an interview, which is really sad, and I cannot tell you how incredibly excited I am for today's guest, who you're going to get a chance to meet in just a minute. Tam Lee, a web developer at Nextdoor. I met Tam through a mutual colleague and discovered this amazing person that I knew I needed to share with you, our amazing community here at High-Tech U. So if you are here to see Tam, you're gonna have to wait for just a minute because I want to give you the rundown on the way things work here. So on Q&A Corner, these are interactive industry interviews. I am interactiving when I talk to Tam and our guests, but you are the reason for the real interactivity. So if you are here, I want you to ask some questions. So as we're going through, if there's a question that comes up and you're like, I'd really love to know this thing about what it's like to work in this industry, throw your question in the chat, which should either be over there or down there, maybe up there. If you're catching this on YouTube, I'm super sorry that you missed the live stream interactivity, but if you throw a comment in the comment section below, I will make sure that Tam gets your questions and that we respond to you. So with all that said, without further ado, I'm super excited to present the one, the only, the spectacular Tam Lee. How's it going, Tam?
Thanks. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing fantastic. This is like, I love these interviews where it's been like weeks in the making and I'm just like, man, this thing is coming up and I don't know why I'm feeling so excited on a Friday night at 5 o'clock. And then I'm like, oh yeah, because I'm talking to Tam about what it's like to be a web developer in Canada. So Tam, I don't know if you've had a chance to check out any of the other streams, but these are super high pressure. All the questions, all like really intense questions too. It's like, I'm going to grill you for an hour. But no, in all seriousness, it's super low key. But at the start of every stream, I do kind of the same thing to make sure everything's working, in that I'm going to put you up center stage to kind of introduce yourself to our viewers, talk a little bit about yourself, maybe a bit of your history. I'm going to check and make sure all the background stuff is working. So, yeah, I'll turn it over to you. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Tam. Well, yeah. So I literally didn't prepare at all for this, but I guess I'll start from the beginning. I went into computer programming because I spent a lot of time in my life on computers at that time in high school, which is not a really good indicator for determining if you should be a programmer or not. But I decided to give it a shot. And it just happens to be, in the first programming class I took in university at U of T, Mississauga, I had a fantastic teacher. And I learned at that point that programming is not like hieroglyphics or like really complicated math and crypto stuff. Like none of that is actually programming. Programming at its core it's like algebra, but you're dealing with words and logic as opposed to just mere letters, right? And you get to program things that can make apps and games and simulations, right? You can make anything with programming, essentially, right? I mean, program is like, we are walking programs ourselves. Anyway, one of the things I'm really passionate as well is just sharing my joy of programming and introducing people to it, because it seems like not enough people are into programming as much as they can be. And I think you're probably already familiar with that. It's like just up there with like literacy and basic math skills in terms of learning how to operate in the world, right? And you don't need to be programming full time to get the benefits from it. You can it's like driving a car, for instance, as well. Like it's a utility that if you wanted to, you could be kind of like an Uber driver, although programmers are like professional programmers are in a way better spot economy wise than just being an Uber driver. But hey, like you can even be both, right? Like it's just another part of your assets that you can make use of. So yeah, long story short, I have like 6-7 years of web development experience, but that's what I like to talk about the most.
I love it. That was amazing. So everything seems to be working. Also, I love that things were working so smoothly that I actually, for the first time in like 6 streams, actually got to listen to a bit of that journey. And it's what I've heard before, but I always love kind of hearing it. And I love that. I love that idea of taking away that myth that it's hard math. I think you hear all the time of like, oh, computer science is hard math, that if you look at those things, it's super intimidating. Whereas programming, even I found it, like, I love Scratch. And I know it's like super basic, like it's not real programming, but I love it because it sort of takes all of the complicated syntax away from it and just says, okay, build this loop that does this thing over and over again. And you're like, oh, this is what programming is. It's creating that sense of direction, right? So I love your description of that.
Yeah. And just to add, like I'd say Scratch is a real programming language. It's just that coincidentally, like using Python or JavaScript, it's easier to do work with that than Scratch. Like so Scratch makes things more presentable for complete newbies, but once you scratch the surface, you realize like there's nothing, you don't even need Scratch, like you can use other languages, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I've seen some super impressive things built with like all of these visual programming languages, which is super exciting. But I'm curious to kind of go back like maybe to your Scratch days, to your high school time when you were on computers. So you kind of talked about your like that U of T prof. And by the way, for anybody who's on the stream, what I love about Tam is that he's willing to do a stream at like 8 o'clock at night, because Tam is based in Toronto, whereas we're obviously here in Victoria. So while we have lots of sunlight outside, the sun is slowly going down, I believe, for you, where you are. But anyways, sorry, I went off track. So
no problem.
This is not good when the host goes off track. That doesn't bode well for the interview.
No, I was actually speaking of the sunset. Like one advice that I could give, like just throw it out there, because it's really easy to get off balance as like a remote programmer, or even just working at home now due to the pandemic, and even besides that, just the ability to do remote work, like especially as an artist as well. Catching the sunset and sunrise every day is one good habit I've picked up. And there's new research showing that by just looking at the sunrise and sunset, the low solar angle, they call it, you'll get that radiation hitting your eyes, boosts your metabolism, like increases your wound healing, like improves your skin and hair health. Like, not to mention, it's just a really good ritual to show that you're in control of your day, that you're able to catch like the sun at the beautiful times and get the benefits and take a break from the screens as well.
I love that. Okay, so let's go a totally different direction. I love that. So, are you fully? No, this is great. Hey, listen, this is I'm just flying by the seat of my pants as we wait for our viewers to throw some comments in. But I'm curious. Have you been fully remote for the whole 6 years? Did you work in an office and now you're remote? Like, what does your work situation currently look like?
Yeah, so yeah, great question. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. Like my first programming experience or programming job, like for co-op, was at TD Bank, which is very traditional, working in a cubicle in a bank. I think almost everyone can imagine it. Well, you can ask me for questions, but yeah, that there was no remote there. Although they did give us the ability, like a key, to be able to work remotely if we needed to, like on call, or if we. I think there was also remote days if you wanted to, like on occasion, but the connection was really weak. So it was better for me to just go in. And I liked that atmosphere as well. I mean, ironically enough. And so my first job after graduating, I worked at a really small firm. I was the only programmer. Well, there was somebody else before me, but they were working on a startup, and they finished a prototype, and then I came on to develop it further. And then the the first programmer actually went on to work on another startup. So then it was an interesting situation, which I had like a lot of freedom in making a web app and maintaining it from scratch. And my manager, who wasn't a programmer, and again, I was the only programmer there, working with the product manager and the designer, that the manager recognized that I'm more productive working at home, or like programmers are known to be more productive working at home, and which is true. But and I worked in a recruiting firm, so there were like, it was almost like salespeople on a call, or just a lot of talking around you. But I actually liked that environment. I put on headphones, of course, like if I really need to concentrate, to block out the noise, because that does get in the way of your productivity. But I do like to be in a good culture, good environment, to like feed off of each other's energy, right? And that's what I think that's lacking for the most part, until we like get really cool virtual stuff to mimic it. But yeah, working around people is, I think, is healthy and it's good for the soul, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting. We hired a bunch of high school interns to work as software development interns. So this was their like first job in tech, and it was a fully remote internship for 2 months. They worked like after school, and we'd set it up so that they would just need to be on Slack, or like an equivalent of Slack, and that was really it. And every day their decision was, no, we want to be on Zoom, even if we're not talking to each other, just so that there's like people around that we can engage. Like I can just say something, or like we can have like that off the cuff conversation that you just don't get when you're working remote right now.
Yeah, and then I recently learned Discord is a good example of that as well, for like just like students or like but really for everybody, right? And there's a few other things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny? So 2 years ago when we ran our High-Tech U Academy, there was a bunch of students. We were using Slack at the time, and they were like, no, we're going to use Discord. We're going to do everything on Discord. And it's one of these situations where you think that you know what is popular and what is the thing to use, and then somebody tells you that it's not. And now you look Discord, like Microsoft is looking at buying Discord for like a ridiculous sum of money. And you're like, well, I guess that's a thing now. And then I feel like Teams will slowly disappear, which I think a lot of us will be very happy about. But maybe it'll stay as enterprise. Anyways, so that's enough about me, because I'm super curious. What is that process like of working for somebody who's not a programmer? Do you find it challenging to be the only technically minded person there, or is it like they bring other skill sets that you don't? Like how does that work for you?
Good question. It was a really interesting experience, and looking back, like I kind of shot myself in the foot, because I didn't have proper mentors who knew what I was getting myself into. Although my manager, he did have experience working with software, so he is familiar with how software engineering is done and product development, and so that was good. And but otherwise, there were a lot of things that he didn't understand about me, and as well as the other people I was working with, some of whom were new too. It was almost like a startup type situation, in which a lot of people are new to like working on something that, and wondering, trying to get it to even grow, right, in usage. And so, yeah, like it's good to work with people that can understand you, but at the same time, I didn't get any feedback, which is extremely important from like the software engineering aspects and product developments, because there wasn't enough experience for that. And I was like, and one thing that I deeply regret is not doing anything about it. So then there were times where I'd be like anxious or like very discouraged and like very unproductive, or just not knowing if I was like doing the right things. So then it felt like a lot of time wasted, but ultimately it's experience that you gain, and that will hit deeper, so that you do learn very quickly, realizing how much you didn't learn, and then get yourself on a good path again.
Tam, you are so wise, like wise beyond even our years combined. I am like, everything that you're saying is like, I really do need to be going out and looking at like the sunrise and sunset. I need control of my life in this environment. So I love this. And if you're on the stream, no, go ahead.
Sorry, and I'm speaking as someone who's like very extreme. Like I was nocturnal for a period last year. Like I was completely off the rails. So I'm like on and off on these things. Although things are coming to a head where I can share more about it and not be so like 50-50.
Yeah. So if you're just on the stream, oh, awesome. Hey! So welcome to the stream, Ken Signs. So excited to have you here. So we just had a viewer in our chat that just called you Tam the Wise. So thank you for that in the chat. If you're just tuning in, we're here with Tam Lee, web developer at Nextdoor, Toronto-based startup, that I'm going to ask him what they do in a couple of minutes. But we are talking tech, career pathways, advice. Tam is demonstrating his wisdom in like the first 10 minutes of this interview. So like, this is going to be gold. If you've got questions for Tam as we're going through, throw them in the chat down there, over there, up there, that whatever way those chat things are for you, throw it in the chat, because Tam is here to answer all of your burning questions about what it's like to work in tech. So, okay, so we've got a job where you're working with somebody who's not a tech person. There's some valuable stuff there. That feedback piece is huge. Tell me a little bit about that startup life experience, because you hear different things from different people. Some people say the startup world is amazing because it's so like open-ended and you can kind of do whatever you want. Others say like there's no consistency, you don't know what's going on. You've worked for like financial institutions as well as now like a more startup. Like what's your preferred like work situation? Do you like this world that you're in right now, or are there things that you would change?
So from that first startup, I went to a company that was a consulting firm I wasn't the only developer this time, which was great, but everybody there was kind of mature, and I came in as like a more mature, like intermediate developer, web developer specializing at that point compared to full stack. And there it was much more rigid. I couldn't work remotely in general. But I kind of screwed up because, to be honest, like I coasted through that job. It was relatively like easy, and or at least like I shouldn't say it's easy, but it was easy to coast through. And I was again shooting myself in the foot by not pushing myself as much as I could have and digging into like updating the legacy system that was there and helping out as much as I could. Although I did enough to not get fired, right? But it's not good to not get fired, right? It was almost like an Office Space type of situation. But it was really depressing when I had to shift my nocturnal schedule to like to not to be in the daytime and then take naps in the lounge room. It was pretty interesting time as well. But yeah, now I'm working at a company that's again like a startup, and the reason why I left was that there was no growth in that previous company, and there wasn't enough. Like I wanted to actually help drive things, but I was pretty much a poor communicator, and just as well clueless in many ways, and disrespectful too. Anyway, that's another story, but fortunately things are all good. Like nothing's like yeah. I don't like how I worded that, but yeah, things are all good.
No, I think that's good. I think, you know what? I think the thing that I discover on these streams all the time is like brutal honesty is sometimes nice, right? Like in reflection, hey, listen, I have definitely made a huge number of mistakes where I recognize now that like I am the person who is in the wrong in a lot of these things. So I think that says something huge to people out there that are like watching these streams. Like you don't need to do everything right. You can screw up and you can still be this awesome web developer. You can be Tam the Wise, and you're able to kind of get there through a winding journey, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate being able to share this stuff, man.
So
and hope. Yeah.
So there's a question in the chat. So Ken Designs says, "Can I ask as a non-coder but interested? How can I start dabbling into the field?"
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Ken. By the way, Ken's my friend. I
Oh,
shared the link with a few friends.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
because I am trying to get everyone, like I'm literally trying to get everyone to get into programming or web development
I love
for
it.
fun, right? At least. And so I do have a website
Yeah,
to
let's.
link to other websites. I mean, in my bio it says bitesizecode.ca.
Yeah, I'm
It's
gonna
a
pull
pretty
it up.
ugly website,
Hold on.
but by the way, if you're interested in design and like collaborating, we could I can assign you, like I have a whole lot of projects I can assign to you, right? And one of which is you can like design this website to be better, right? I just use like a very basic template. Like literally, you can set up this website in like 5 minutes. But these links, like I've curated, I mean, a few of the really good links or resources I've discovered over the years for different styles. Like there's several university courses, each teaching programming in their own style, right? Like whether it's from MIT in the 80s, actually, it's using a language called Scheme, uh, and it's or Lisp, and it used to be used for AI or very popular for that, but now that's Python. But they teach you in that MIT course in 1980s the fundamentals of programming and good software engineering practices. So even from the very first program or first course you take, like you can learn how to make. It's called a functional language. You get to learn how to make object-oriented language. Like you get to construct a programming language in your first class about programming, right?
That's
It
so
goes
cool.
through so many good models.
Is that this one?
And yes.
I love that.
So interesting was that this class was taught to engineers at HP at the time. So this was taught to like professionals in the field as opposed to university students, but it's a university style lecture, right?
Okay.
And it's timeless. It's a classic. It's like studying literally like the Latin classics or something. But it's the essence of programming, which is just all logic and putting pieces together, right? And how to craft software, how to design and craft software.
I love
and
that.
when the concepts you learn here, they apply to every programming language, like whether you're using Python, JavaScript, Java, whatever, and or Swift. Like these principles are timeless. And once you learn and get really good with one language, I mean, you've probably heard that it's really quick to get to another. But this also covers the fundamentals at a level that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Very cool. So yeah, I'm gonna throw this in the chat too. If you are here on the stream and you are interested in checking out the site that we're looking at right now, bitesizecode.ca is Tam's website, and yeah, definitely check it out. So what other courses are in here that you kind of recommend to people?
So to learn a little bit more about what programming is about, the first video from Khan Academy I find is pretty nice. Like there's also that code.org video, but on Khan Academy, the first introduction to programming, they'll go like it's like a trailer through what programming is about and the applications of it.
Oh, very
And
cool.
I'd say that video is really nice. And then if you want a more gentle introduction where you can interact with things right away and it's not as intimidating, that course that I showed you previously, SICP or SICP it's called for short, for Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs. It's created by like physicists and aimed at a university level. So it can be quite challenging depending on your background.
Totally.
So I would still recommend to give it a shot because the one thing I love that the instructors do there is that they equate programming to magic, and learning to programming is getting yourself to become a wizard, right? Which is what programming feels like, to be honest.
I love it. What else? So what else is in here? So Free Code Camp is here as well. Like what are your feelings on Free Code Camp?
So Free Code Camp as well is very beginner friendly. It's a solid program. However, I think that it takes a bit longer. I mean, it's trying to target the average person.
Yeah.
And that's not always not necessarily a bad thing, but where we vary so much in different learning styles, and I find that that would be personally be too, for my taste, too boring. or it takes too long to get to a certain points that I'd rather watch some lectures first and work on the assignments from lectures. Like that's my style.
Yeah.
Like one thing I didn't mention is the Harvard Introduction to Computer Science is really good as well. But I actually have problems with that too. After trying to get someone my age, roughly like 30, to go through it, and then I realized with my experience that they're teaching many things that you don't really need to do right away, right? Like binary. Um, like I wouldn't bother teaching binary in the first class because like that's frankly like very very boring, and you never really need to use binary in the first place, right? So um, so back to free code camp. I'd say if you can get through the course, that's great. Like it's a solid course to go through and it's completely free, which is awesome. I personally donate to them on a monthly basis as well. Like I really do appreciate them and wish them all the best. And they do evolve too, which is great because they had an original curriculum which I wasn't a big fan of, and then they upgraded, which is pretty great. And they still upgrade it, and it's a group effort. Like as much as I have my criticisms about it, like they've done like a bajillion times more to the effort of helping programming than I have. So I can't really uh, complain or anything, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because this is I definitely have used Free Code Camp. So I was curious on your thoughts. I definitely found it too slow. Like I got in because I mean I think this is the thing that really scares people. Like you look at this like responsive web design certification 300 hours and then you're like, well, I don't have 300 hours. Like I have 3 hours a night that I can dedicate every week, and that's going to take me 2 years to be able to get that done. So how like I feel like that kind of sends you in a direction where you're like, oh, I don't have 300 hours. But I also get that it's coursework, right? So that you can do other things as well.
Yeah, like it's really good if you're able to get the point where you can put those hours. And I have heard of people or initiatives which I fully agree with, like reskilling like displaced workers or displaced professionals, right? And yeah, if there was like a government grant or subsidy to get like people with families to take care of, to like just help support them get through get an education or a course to get some employable in demand skills,
Totally.
then yeah, like it does take roughly, the rule of thumb is for professional wise, it takes roughly 1,000 hours to become a full stack developer. Ballpark, it could be plus or minus 200 depending on the person, or at least that's what I've heard from others and what I would estimate as well. And judging by the time spent in boot camps as well, right?
Totally. So okay, so then you've got these resources. I don't know if you're willing to share the other thing. I love the other thing that you have also created. But I don't know if you do you want to keep it as a secret so that people will just keep going back to Bitesize Code? Or are you willing to share it out and like show some cool stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I'm willing to. I'd love to share it.
Awesome. So I'll actually let you screen share, and I've got a separate screen share window that I can pull up. That's like a little bit more. Where's my guest presentation? And then, okay, give me 1 second. Let me just grab guest video, guest blank frame video. Let's go up with that. Okay, and then I'll transition over there. There you go. So yeah, you can. Oh, I got to allow you to screen share. I got to grant you the privilege. There we go. Give it just a second and it should let you screen share. Oh, and ignore that title that's at the bottom. Ooh. There you go. Is it letting you do it now?
Okay. Cool. I may need to restart the Zoom because I installed this just recently.
That's okay. If you do, and then you can just jump back in. We will be here waiting for you.
Okay. All right, I'm back.
There we go. And we are back, everybody. I know you missed us. I'm going to turn off our background music now.
All right, yeah, speaking of which, I should have taken that. One other tip for like mental breaks too is to like take 15-20 second break every 15 to 20 minutes. And good to adjust the posture too. Like programmers are notorious for, or office workers notorious for bad posture. So it's good to like take breaks to readjust yourself, right?
It's so true. Do you watch The Office, Tam, at all?
No, I know it's everyone's favorite show, but regrettably, I didn't spend any time watching that when I should have.
So there's a scene in it where they are going over like issues for office workers, and they say like you should be doing this every 15 to 20 minutes and this every 15 to 20 minutes, and like you laugh at it, and then you're like, but that's legit. Like you definitely do. All right. And you have disappeared. Give me 1 second. I will get that sorted. Just gotta switch over to that and back to that. There we go. All right.
Oh shoot, I need to update my website. Yeah, speaking of which, I took the week off for vacation, and I was supposed to work on this a lot more, but I guess I really needed to decompress and catch up on sleep and rest. So
it's good.
Anyway, expect to see things soon, or even collaborate. Like I'm open to working with other people on this and helping guide and mentor as they work on hopefully projects that they find cool, and then I can offer feedback.
I love it. Okay, should I pull you back over to the main screen?
Sure. 1 moment. Let me see. Okay, sure.
All right. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, and I'm just going to make that so it's a little bit less cut off, because that's not good. Where's our...
Oh, I can also adjust it.
No. It's on my end. I just need to make it a little bit... Whoa, I have no idea what I've done. What the heck?
I moved it a little bit myself. Hopefully that didn't interfere.
No, it wasn't you. It was definitely me. I'm just unsure how I did it. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. There we go. So this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're live on the stream, this is what it really means to live stream is doing this. All right, let's go. Guest video. Always prep these things before you do a live stream. All right.
It's all good. It's always a good time to, like, it's a meditation break for the audience as far as...
It's very true. There we go. We got it. Awesome. All right. We are there.
Yeah. So this is a very bare bones, just proof of concept or POC of a programming course that I want to create. And this is JavaScript. All of the lines here that start with a / are comments, which are just literally the comments for the human to understand. It's not for the computer to execute. So literally you can just write a whole story in comments and deliver that to somebody to implement as program code if you really wanted to, right? Which is probably what some people have done, although I haven't tried that. But that's one strategy too. Like you'd outline the code you'd want to write, and then write out the code. Just say you want to write an outline on one day and then start programming the next day, right? And anyway, I saved a script inside of this programming script to show some examples of code. And this is setting a color. This is called a function. Or you may be familiar with functions already. Yeah, I'm just setting the color here and then drawing a rectangular with certain dimensions. And I'm trying to create a programming or introduction to programming where you can create a game in the first lesson. And maybe it'll take I still haven't done the video, but it should take 15-20 minutes. But in the meantime, I've saved what the final script could possibly look like. And Uh, so it looks something like this, right? And I have actually recorded myself programming this, but I'm pretty disorganized, embarrassingly as well. So I'm not even sure if I'd have to dig into it, but it's probably better if I just redo it. And in this little lesson, you can learn how to do some basic like gravity and event handling, like things that are more substantial. And like this is almost part of a game. Like with the code, with the logic in here, you can probably make like a game out of it, right? Like you can make another character to jump and recognize other commands. You can set the numbers to be different. You can make them fly actually, or let's see, or almost, yeah, see, or almost like fly. And yeah, I was thinking also of like just adding little drills, like you can give as a task to somebody, like for the first exercise, change the color of the character. So you're literally coding, whoops. It doesn't look like it's, okay, cool. I'll have to look into this. But yeah, you can like ask challenges, like change certain values and see the results. Almost like at the same time, it's almost like you're learning physics and algebra, right? I mean, and yeah, I have a big backlog of things I'd love to do for this, like making like a shell console and other things. And as we've discussed before, Andrew, like making it showing teachers how to work with this and having teachers come up with curriculum for students, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a simple, I see this in such a really cool way as being the next step after like a Scratch situation, right? It's very visual. It's focused on that kind of like gamification. I think, yeah, anyways, I love Hello World. Like, I really think it's just such a cool platform. And if you're out there and you're interested in learning how to code, like this is going to be a game changer, I think.
Yeah, like please do. Like I very much like I'm very passionate about teaching, but I'm really not like I don't fit in with the traditional, not traditional, no, sorry. I should say that it was harder for me to like I can't go through school to get like the license to become a teacher because I can't stand school, ironically enough, as much as I like to teach. But yeah, this is something that we can work together, and I'd love to, yeah, and be able to help people make really cool stuff and get competence, like just discover the joy of programming as well as just gain skills and help them with their path as well. Oh, and I'll just add that you'll also get a lot of GitHub experience, and like this is an open source project too. Like I'm not even hiding the code; the source code's up there. It's just that it's harder to get popular than than you think, right? And okay, so one thing that's mind blowing about programming is that all the tools, or the majority of the tools, are available for free, right? Like Python, JavaScripts. Like imagine these are like Ferraris and Porsches. Like these are like super powered cars or jets, and like you can make money off of them, or like you can do really cool stuff and build like the top companies in the world with them, right? And they're completely free. You have your access to everything, and of course you can pay for other services and other products as well. But the core, like to get started as a programmer, like there's so much free stuff to work with and contribute back to. Like it's amazing that people just love to, like we're in a position where we can just work for free in certain situations, right? And still like have a fulfilling I guess, career.
Totally. Well, and it's interesting. I had a conversation years ago when we started High Tech U. The people that helped us were actually the trades teachers at the schools, and there was a carpenter that was working with us, and he said, "Listen, programming technology is the next iteration of like building with in like it's the next level of woodworking, right? But the difference is if you want to go and become a carpenter, you need to go and buy a hammer and you need to go and buy all these things. If you want to become a programmer, like as long as you've got a computer, then you're good to go."
Yeah, definitely. The computer, and it can be as cheap. Like I used to buy used computers, and if you really needed an affordable, reliable used computer, just get like a ThinkPad off of some website, and and you're like, or a Chromebook or an iPad even, right, with a keyboard.
Yeah, it's so true. So I want to jump back to something. We got about 10 minutes left, but I want to jump back to something that you said about like I'm not sort of the traditional teacher, because there's people that are potentially going to be watching this stream who hate high school. I mean, honestly, I would say half of the people that I talk to on this stream or other streams literally hated high school completely, and the other half loved it. But the majority didn't. What was your, and maybe not just high school, but like what is it about the traditional education pathway that doesn't speak to you, I guess?
Okay. Yeah. So I've been all over all sides, I suppose. But one thing, like in defense of educational institutions and communities, like the biggest thing is community. Like I just use that word. And that's something that you can't, or at least that's really, really good at colleges, universities, and high schools even, right? Like it's the ability to connect with other people and work with other people. And that's the reason why like I'm really happy about my position at Nextdoor, is that while I do like get anxious at times about not starting my own startup or whatever, but I work as part of a really great team, and there's still so much for me to learn and grow in terms of communication skills, definitely due to my experience or my particular background. Like I'm really lacking communication skills, but they're steadily improving. But yeah, like teamwork and communication and working together to a bigger mission than just your own idea but you get to contribute your ideas as well, which is extremely important in school and anywhere, is being able to contribute and both get feedback and contribute, and like have it be like a beautiful, harmonious, growing cycle, right?
I agree. Yeah. Don't you wish, and I can just imagine a school environment, and this does exist. There are some schools that do this where literally your entire school experience is just building something that's going out into the world. So it's not these like little micro assignments where you're doing something, but it's like you have a mission, a thing that you're putting out into the world, and you're either contributing on maybe the marketing side or like the creation side, like, and it doesn't need to be a business. It could just be for a thing that's for within the school. But if you're just like this self-sufficient contributing member of a group, that's the piece, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Wait, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Then one last thing is, in terms of what they teach in school, like, or the curriculum or how it's set up, there's definitely flaws. Evidently, like a lot of people are struggling in school just from the grades and everything, and the grade system is quite flawed combined with the fact that we're like, it's not even like a proper assessment of what students should be assessed on in the first place, right? Like there's a whole bunch of gaps and things that can be done where like individualization, personalization of curriculum can be greatly improved. And that's where things like Khan Academy or similar programs that make it so that there's a automated path for people to go through, and then have facilitators and assistants and backup to help get through the path, right? In a more not targeted, but focused manner, I should say, per individual. Right?
Totally. So what would be the thing that you would change if you could change, if you could go back and change something for Tam of 10, 15 years ago, what would you have changed about that educational experience?
Hmm. That's a, yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. Like, I get the question about like, what would you do if you went back in time and changed stuff? It could change anything. And for me, I'd be like, I wouldn't change anything at all to be like really zen-like. But uh,
I like
I
your
don't know. Like
answer
this
though.
question actually has me kind of stumped. Well, one thing is that there, I'd love it if there were, or this is one thing I really have thought of, is like having meetings, at least in university, to have meetings with your professor, like one-on-ones with your instructors, which is almost impossible with the when there's like 400 kids or more in a class. However, there are office hours. So there is definitely opportunities to build relationships with your professors. And I guess that's the what I would have changed is about myself is develop better relationships with people, and instead of being so isolated and trying to do things on my own, and I wish that I honestly believe that it was there for the most part. It's just that we weren't taught, or at least in my environments, I was never encouraged to like really go out there and really get close and develop relationships with not only your mentors but your peers in terms of self-assessing and peer reviewing each other even, right?
I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's a missing link when you look at this idea of the way things run, in that it's like if you're going to be successful, and you're the person that sat there and you studied and you did it all yourself, and that's what demonstrates success. And there's so much research now that says like no, and not even research, just like common sense of like, if you have that person that's an amazing programmer or an amazing worker and they literally are just like never talking to anybody and just so heads down, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So if you're just jumping onto the stream, we are here talking with Tam Lee, amazing web developer at Nextdoor, based out of Toronto. We're almost nearing the end, or we are nearing the end. So if you've got a question that you'd like to ask Tam, throw it in the chat, because we want to give you an opportunity to do that before I throw my super stressful final question that I ask every single person on the stream. But my second last question that I will ask before that stressful one, as we wait for things to come through, are what are the strategies that you've found sort of now that you've gotten out into the world and you are in this successful role, but things that you've changed since maybe those kind of former days where you were just kind of coasting and going through that stuff to now? What are some like active things that you've changed to get to the place that you're at now as a professional developer?
um to be honest, I'm the type of person that needed to be or needs to be nudged, I suppose, but I'm trying to change that. Like nobody should need to be nudged, but we all do sometimes or at times.
Absolutely.
And so the role that I'm currently working at, it is challenging me, and it's challenged me at just the right level where I'm able to contribute well and still learning a lot, and it's keeping me really busy. So I literally can't coast here, right? However, um, I've only recently learned that you should only expect, although I read about it years ago in research, that if we're going all out with creative work, and speaking of which, creative work includes like management and anything dealing with people too. So it's not just arts and software, like engineering involves a lot of creativity as well. Anyway, yeah, we get around like 4 hours max if we're going all out. So you can like adjust the pacing just as you can with running and jogging and stuff. And so that's helped me a lot. I used to think that I had 8 hours a day to code, but no, you really more have like 4 hours or less a day to code. And the other times, like you literally can't even, you like it's really stressful to stress your brain a lot more than that. And plus there's meetings too, and you discuss and brainstorming and organizing administration related stuff as well. So it's a whole and set of things to do, not just coding. And that's what I really like about working at a company like Nextdoor. And like every developer there is called a software engineer. Anyone working on code there is a software engineer, and they treat it to a high standard. So that's what I would really recommend as well, like going to places where you can tell they really care about quality. And while not being like overbearing and all that other stuff that you might be worried about.
I love that. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So with our final couple of minutes, I will throw the super stressful question out to you. So it is, it's always the same one. If you, in like 30 seconds, could encapsulate like your greatest piece of advice, piece of wisdom for somebody who is wanting to pursue a career that wants to be Tam Lee in 5, 10, 15 years, what would you say to them? And I'm going to put you up on like the main screen so you are solo in this epic answer.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. So my one advice, damn it, this is too much pressure. But the one thing is you can get there a lot sooner than I did. Like to really be measuring, like I took longer to get to where I am than I could have, and I made a lot of mistakes. But on that note, like you really aren't falling behind. You set your own bar, and you have to make your own mistakes and just just keep working on your creativity. Not working on your creativity. Be creative and resourceful, which everyone is capable of being. To keep like getting feedback and listening to it, accepting it, and just accepting, like, to be Zen-like, and you don't need to worry. Like, just, yeah. And contact me if you'd like more advice.
I love that. No, that was awesome. I love that. Like, I think failure is a thing. Work hard, keep trying. That's spectacular. I love
It's
that.
not so generic, but yeah.
No, listen, you know what? I feel like everybody thinks these things are cliches, but they're not. There's a reason that they became so like well said, and it's because people have to get there through experience. But if you can like get some extra advice to help you through those difficult times, I think it's super useful. So with that said, we're just past 6, which means we're just past 9 for you, Tam, and I don't want to keep you much longer. But if you are just coming onto the stream, you missed an amazing conversation. We've been chatting with Tam Lee, web developer extraordinaire at Nextdoor in Toronto. We've been talking education, we've been talking EdTech, we did some resource stuff that's out there. All these links I'm going to share in the chat, which I've already shared. I'm also going to share them in the description below, because if you're catching this now, you're too late. You missed all the good stuff, but you can catch it on YouTube, where we're going to be posting this in a couple of days as well. You're going to be able to catch that piece of wisdom from Tam on TikTok, because we're going to be cutting that out. Tam, you are going to be everywhere after this stream.
All right, Andrew.
So with all that said, Tam, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be able to share the amazing stuff that you are doing with the world. Thank you to all of our viewers who tuned into the stream live today. Thank you to all of our viewers on YouTube who are tuning into this after the fact. You are all fantastic. Hopefully you got something really useful out of this stream. And I'll give the final word over to Tam in just a second. But from me, from High Tech U at the University of Victoria here in beautiful British Columbia, thank you so much for being here. Be kind, be healthy, be safe, and we'll see you on the next Q&A corner. Tam, final words over to you.
I guess just chill and maintain good posture throughout life.
I love it. Thanks so much. We'll see you later, Tam. See you later, everybody else. And for those of you who are maybe in lockdown right now and stay-at-home orders, we got lots of other content for you to watch while you're locked inside. So definitely check that out. But be healthy, be safe, and we'll get through this. So thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.